Okay, Tyler H's question is up next. It says, at what point is term life insurance necessary versus optional? Should you get more as you age? My wife and I are in our 20s with no dependents, and we save 25% of our income. So it seems unnecessary, but I think this is a good question of like, when should you be thinking about this? Because it's something that we talk about on the show.
Let me give some overview, because I know you this is you in some ways. And you've always had lots of life insurance, but you've even made more decisions.
A lot more now.
So, Tyler, this is the thing. And look, sometimes I think people think that like we're fee-only financial advisors. We don't sell life insurance. So a lot of people say, well, these guys just don't like life insurance because they just don't sell a lot. No, just the opposite, actually. We recommend a lot of life insurance to people who will come and listen. And we even I own millions upon millions of dollars of life insurance myself. It is all term life insurance. And here's what I would tell you on when do you know when you should have life insurance is if your premature death would cause a lot of havoc and stress and put somebody in a heck of a pickle if you passed away early. Now, you said, Tyler, y'all don't have kids.
20s, no dependents.
No dependents.
20%.
So, but you do have a spouse. And so if you're both successful and you're doing well, you're not really adding stress. However, you go buy that first house. Now, all of a sudden, if you pass away, because maybe y'all need both of your incomes to afford this house because housing's gone crazy, you can see how maybe now having a life insurance policy that to at least cover the mortgage on the house and maybe even a little bit of money to give you the time to recover, to mourn, and because maybe you're not going to be the most productive version of yourself while you're working, that would make sense. But then it's a whole nother equation once you start adding kids. And I look at Bo now because Bo, y'all have got 3 children now.
Got a gaggle of them,
Yeah, you got a whole brood. Like you said, you're no longer doing man-to-man coverage anymore. We've moved to zone. So it's walk through what you guys have done.
Yeah, no, I love what you just said, Brian. You know, when my wife and I, when we first got married, we made the decision. She was working, I was working. Yeah, we don't really need life insurance. Now, life insurance agents will tell you, and this is not like a backhanded comment because I love life insurance agents. I used to like kind of live in that industry.
You actually sold life insurance.
Yeah, I used to sell life insurance. They'll say, hey, you ought to go ahead and get life insurance while you're young and you can guarantee insurability. And while there is truth in that, but in reality, if you're going to play the probability game, you're going to be just as insurable at age 28 as you are at age 22. I mean, there are certainly things that could happen, and I don't want to discount those, but those are the exceptions. They're not the rule. And so if you're someone who's young in your 20s, you're probably not, assuming no like crazy health stuff happens, you're not going to run into this area where you're likely to be uninsurable. So like when me and my wife first got married, we didn't have life insurance. When I bought my first policy was when we actually moved out of state. And I said, all right, if I'm gonna pull my wife away from her family, her social structure, all this stuff, we're gonna move from Georgia to Tennessee, and we're gonna commit to like buying a home, and we're gonna do that stuff together. I wanna make sure that if something happens to me, she's covered to where financially she can decide I either wanna keep the house or go back to Georgia or whatever. So that was like decision number 1 for us. Well, then we had a baby, and I was like, holy cow, now I got college. I've got man, and you know I at the time I was a higher income earner, but my wife was still working, and she was not as high of an income earner. So I was like, man, if something happens to me, my baby girl, she needs to be taken care of. So I got some more life insurance. Well, then we had the second kid. Well, when we had the second kid, we're like, all right, well, for our family, it makes sense for my wife to step away from the workforce, so she's gonna stay home. And then it was like, okay, now there's a lot of human beings depending on me, so then I got some more life insurance. Well, then life continued to move along, and everything was good, and I had plenty of insurance, and we've been saving, and the portfolio's building, and we have all the business and all the assets. But then we had this other kid, and I'm like, holy cow, he's not going to be out of the house for 20 more years. Man, all those policies I bought 10, 12, 15 years ago maybe, they're kind of coming up on their term. Maybe I need to think about just resetting my term because some of my kids are halfway out of the house, but some of my kids are just starting out. So I made the decision, hey, I'm still relatively young. I'm still pretty healthy. Why don't I think about going ahead and getting more life insurance to get the insurable need, but I can also at this stage go ahead and reset the term. The point that I'm making for you, Tyler, is all along this, it's not like a decision you make one time, point in time, and you never revisit it. It's a decision that you make, and then you constantly kind of revisit as you have different life events happen. The fact that your 20s with no dependents, you're both saving, you're both working, you're both earning, maybe it's not absolutely necessary that you have life insurance in place. As your life circumstances change, then you try to get life insurance that makes sense for that stage of life, and then you make sure that you continue to grow as your lifestyle or as your circumstances grow as well.
Not to prolong the question too long, but I think that the reason we like term is because the goal is, look, when you're young and starting a family and stuff, you might not have a lot of assets, but you have income and other things, and you need to replace that if something happens to you, unfortunately, prematurely. Mm-hmm. When you get older, like, getting my age and beyond, I'm quickly approaching where I don't really need life insurance anymore because I can self-insure. If something happens to me, my wife is going to be completely fine just with our financial assets that we've built up over the last three decades. Mm-hmm. So that's the goal, is that the need for the assets or for assets or income to be recovered because you died prematurely will go away in the long term, because hopefully in the background, that's why we like term, is because its cost is so low. You're just buying the cost of the insurance to replace, and it leaves a lot of margin for you to be building assets in the background. A lot of times when I see permanent insurance pitched out there, it's eating all of the pie, meaning that it's not only the cost of the insurance, it's also all of your potential lifestyle as well as investment purchases that you could be making to self-insure in the future. If you're paying a $10,000 a year annual premium on your life insurance versus $600,
very different.
Then you can see how there's a lot of life in that $9,400 difference between those two numbers. So that goes into it. We're pro insurance, but check it. There's nothing wrong with making this decision piecemeal, kind of building that quilt of life insurance. But I would just challenge you every time, because when you make that decision, like when you buy the 20-year term when you have your first child, that's not to say after you've had the third child that you might say, you know what? Premium rates have actually gone down. I'm in healthier shape than I was when I got the first policy. Why don't we see if we can consolidate and get more insurance, reset the term, and by the way, don't cancel old insurance until the new insurance is actually in place. That's another tip that I'll just share with you. But great question, Tyler.